This is our beginner macrame wall hanging using right-facing square knots and Larks head knots. First, you want to make sure that you have all your materials ready to go. You should have 15 cords of 3 or 4 millimeter cotton rope cut to 1.5 meters. Make sure you have scissors nearby, 2 S-hooks, a wooden dowel or branch if you are able to find one, something to measure with, and tape will come in handy at the end, but it's not entirely necessary. So now you need to find a place to hang your project while you work on it. I usually use a garment rack that I ordered online. If you have a tension rod, you can put it in a doorway and work there. You can work in your closet. You can use the rod for your shower curtain, but you'll probably need a step stool if you do that. You can go outside and use a tree, or if worse comes to worse, you can temporarily redecorate and use an existing nail in your wall. You might have to get a little creative for this part of your project. Before we get started, I want to walk you through the 2 types of knots we'll be using, the Larks head knot and the right-facing square knot. The Larks head knot is what we use to attach the cords to the dowel or branch. Fold your cord in half and put the loop over the top of the dowel and pass the loose ends through the loop on the front. So again, put your 2 ends of your cord together, fold it in half, pass the loop over top of the dowel, and pull the loose ends through the loop. Let's go ahead and get started with your project. So hang your dowel or stick between the 2 hooks and measure it to find the middle. Start hanging your cords on your dowel by folding each one in half and tying a front-facing Lark's head knot over the dowel. Pass the loop over the top, then pass the loose ends through the loop, and repeat with 14 of the 15 cords. I always like to start in the center and then alternate sides to make sure it stays even on both ends. Once you're done, grab your ruler or something to measure and make sure there's even space on either side. Now we're going to tie our first right-facing square knot. So we're starting with the 4 cords furthest to the left. Start by holding the cord furthest to the right in your right hand and make sort of a letter P shape with it crossing over top of the 2 middle cords. I like to pinch the middle cords with the right cord to keep them in place. Then pick up your left cord, cross it over the tail of the P, behind the 2 middle cords, and through the loop. This is a half square knot. Now we do the other half by repeating the same thing in the other direction. So hold the farthest left cord in your left hand, make a number 4, pass the right cord over the tail of the 4, behind the 2 middle cords, and through the loop. Let's go over that again in a little more detail with no other cords in the way. Start by holding the cord farthest to the right in your right hand and make sort of a letter P. What I like to do is pinch the 2 middle cords with the right cord, keep them in place. Then pick up your left cord, cross it over the tail of the P, behind the 2 middle cords, and through the loop. This is a half square knot. Now we do the other half by repeating the same thing in the other direction. So hold the farthest left cord in your left hand and make the number 4. Pass the right cord over the tail of the 4, behind the 2 middle cords, and then through the loop. And now pull it tight. So this is a right-facing square knot because of this little knot that's sticking out right here on the right-hand side. Once you feel comfortable with your right-facing square knot, tie another one with the next 4 cords on the right. Keep repeating this until you've created a row of right-facing square knots. There's really no right amount of looseness or tightness to tying these knots. It's really all in being consistent. So if you tie them tight, continue to make them tight throughout your project. Now that you've got a row of right-facing square knots done, let's talk about some common mistakes. So here I've got a right-facing square knot, so I'm going to start another one. make the P, cross it over, behind the 2 and through the loop, tighten it. And now I'm going to make my 4 with the left side, cross it over on the right, behind, through the loop, and tighten it. So what happens if I double up on doing the 4? So I will end up with 2 half square knots, and my rope will start to twist around. And this is how we make a spiral, but we're not going to get into that for this project. So you can see that the knot is actually behind where it should be. So if that happens, you're going to want to untie it and retie the knot so that it is actually a right-facing square knot and not 2 half square knots. Okay, back to our project. We're now going to eliminate the 2 cords on the far left and the 2 on the far right. Start tying your right-facing square knots with the first 4 cords now on your left. It should land between the first 2 square knots on the top. These are called alternating square knots. So you want to continue making a row all the way across just like this. Okay, now that our second row is done, we're going to do the same thing that we did before and eliminate the 2 outer cords on the left and the 2 outer cords on the right. And then start our third row of alternating square knots. These should be directly underneath the second square knot on the top row. And you're going to continue doing this all the way across. So by now you're probably pretty clear on what the pattern is. You're going to eliminate the 2 outer cords on the right and the left and continue now with your fourth row of alternating square knots. Now we eliminate the left and the right 2 cords again and start your fifth row. Eliminate the outer 2 and start your sixth row. Your seventh row should be only 1 square knot with the 4 middle cords, and then you're finished. This is where the tape comes in. As you can see, we have some uneven, funky edges on the bottom here, so we want to trim them up and make them even. You can do this in any pattern or style that you want. You can cut straight across, or you can do what I'm going to do and cut them in lines parallel to the slope of the edge of the pattern. So lay your cords out as evenly as possible and place the tape over the cords in the pattern you want to cut. Now you just want to make sure that you've measured appropriately. Sometimes eyeballing it can be okay, but this is about 14 inches from the middle of the branch on either side, so I think I've done a pretty good job of that. Now carefully start cutting along the tape, trim up the edges, and you're done. Almost forgot about that 15th cord that you've got in your kit. So what you want to do with that one is tie it on to the outer edge of your project, just with a regular double knot. There are other ways to do this, but we don't need to get fancy here. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, and you want to make sure that you're tying it loose or tight enough with as much slack on the top. Basically, you need to decide how far down you want it to hang on the wall. So then flip it over and take the loose ends and just tie those together. And then once those are tied together, you can trim them up with your scissors and you are ready to go. Thanks for watching and, of course, supporting local artists and businesses. And I would love to see your finished projects, so feel free to share them with me at jessica.melrose.art on Instagram or Jessica Melrose Artwork on Facebook.